Hello, Gaston County. Welcome to episode number 168 of the Gaston's Great Podcast, a podcast, I think, highlighting some of the great things happening in and around Gaston County. I'm your host, Stephen Long, and we're coming to you once again from the worldwide headquarters of GSM Services right here in downtown Gastonia. We simply believe in discussing more of the reasons why Gaston's great. I am excited today to have Dixie Abernathy and Jeff Ramsey with us today to talk about Cramerton and Dixie's book trilogy and the Cramerton Historical Society. We'll just see where this goes. But Dixie is a professor of education at Queen's University in Charlotte, and Jeff is one of the co-founders of the Cramerton Historical Society. Was that both of you were founders, or just okay? Okay,
I'm just a volunteer there.
Absolutely. So very good. So and obviously when you say all that, they're involved with a lot of different things. So Dixie and Jeff, it's great to have you on, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you to GSM Service.
Well, absolutely. Well, I appreciate that. So as usual, because I know Dixie and Jeff have other things to do besides talk to us today, we'll get right to it. So I'm going to start with Jeff because you're just furthest away. We'd like to ask this opening question. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, anything you'd like to share, and then we'll get into and you and Dixie answer that question, and we'll get into the main topic.
Sounds good. And thanks also to having us.
Sure.
I'm a fourth generation in Gaston County since 1915, of course in Cramerton. Love Gaston County. I'm married, Jennifer Guy Ramsey, be 35th anniversary.
Wow. She's put up with that for that long, huh?
She knows. Absolutely. I have two children, Dr. J. Tyler Ramsey's 31 and Andrew Ramsey 29.
Okay.
So, been busy serving the community of Gaston County. It's amazing the transition that Gaston County's since the textile industry.
All right. Very good. Dixie, what about you? What can you tell us about yourself?
Hey, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So I was raised right here in Gaston County, grew up in Dallas, attended all of the Dallas schools, North Gaston graduate. I've been married for 35 years to a great guy named John Abernathy. He is from the McCaddenville Abernathys, so he also grew up right here in Gaston County. I am a former 30-year veteran educator in the Gaston County school system. Spent my entire career right here in the Gaston County schools as a classroom teacher, a principal, and the last 10 years as assistant superintendent of schools for Gaston County.
Okay.
I've now been at Queen's University of Charlotte for 10 years. There I'm a professor and chair of the Cato School of Education. And as I'm sure we'll get into,
absolutely,
on the side, I do write novels, but I have to remind people that that's not my full-time job.
Okay.
For Queen's University, I also have to write, but unfortunately, I have to write research books for my full-time job, not quite as entertaining as novels, but on the side, just as a hobby, I do like to write, dabble a little bit in creative writing.
All right, very good. Do you mind me asking what schools you taught at here in Gaston County?
My entire teaching career was at Southwest Middle School, right here in Gastonia, and then I went back to school, got my master's degree in school administration, and became a school administrator. I was an assistant principal at Mount Holly Middle School and Forest Heights Elementary School, and also a principal at Belmont Middle School and North Belmont Elementary School.
All right, so you've got the whole county covered there.
Yes.
Jeff, let me ask, where did you go to high school here?
I went to South Point High School and graduated in 1981, and then graduated with a business degree at Sacred Heart College before they shut down.
All right.
But also, Dixie was a wonderful employee for Gaston County Schools. Of course, I'm on Board of Education, but we give them a tour of duty to do the whole county.
Sure.
And it shapes them very well when they come to the county office and serve as an assistant superintendent.
So we've got South Point, North Gaston, and Ashbrook covered here, right? And I was at Sherwood Elementary and Greer Junior High. Of course, junior high back in the day, not middle school. So we've got the county covered here, and I won't hold South Point and North Gaston against you. Too much.
Got a pretty good football team right now.
Well, this year, and back when I was there, we were really good in football, which of course I didn't play. That's one of the reasons we were probably pretty good. So listen, we're here to talk about a few different things. So Dix, I just want to start with you. I know if you're listening, I would encourage you maybe to go to YouTube online. You can see the books that we've got here that Dixie has authored. But tell us just, gosh, for lack of a better question, because I'm not a very good question person, how did this come about? Touch on the Cramerton Historical Society, or just anything and everything, so our listeners can get a feel for why are we here, and these terrific history here and information about Cramerton.
It's a great question. I'll go ahead and start with that one. I think it's an amazing story, almost an unbelievable story that these books are actually finished and people are enjoying them now. Back in the year 2022. I first met a member of the Kramer family. And for those of you listening who don't know, that is the founding family of our little town of Cramerton. Our founder is named Stuart W. Kramer, and of course he had ancestors before him, people who came behind him in the family, all of whom had very interesting and prolific stories themselves. But in 2022, I actually met for the first time a member of that family tree, and his name is Warren Kramer. And he invited me to sit down with him and to have a beverage with him at a local establishment there in Cramerton. And so we were just speaking, and he had already read some of my other novels that I had written, and he had just read those for enjoyment and had very much liked them. Little did I know at that time that prior to that, back during the 100-year birthday of the town of Cramerton, the centennial events of that anniversary, Jeff Ramsey and other town leaders had interacted with Kramer family members, and they had talked about how wonderful it would be to share the history of that founding family with other people. So that was an idea that had already been discussed. Fast forward, 2022, I'm having a nice cold beer with Mr. Warren Kramer, and he brings up that it's always been his lifelong plan and hope to write a book about Stuart W. Kramer, that was something that his own father had encouraged him to do, and that he'd very much like to do it, but he felt like he needed someone to partner with him in that work. And on that day, in 2022, he asked me if I would get involved with that. And so that was the beginning of the journey. Now, I will say it was not an easy path forward. Mr. Kramer lives in Florida. I live here in Cramerton. I had my work with the university. I was busy with other projects. I'm an elected official in Cramerton. I'm a town commissioner. I'm a deacon for my church, First Baptist of Cramerton. So
let's squeeze in writing a few books in between, huh?
Just write a trailer.
We were doing our best to get the project up and rolling, and we had a lot of encouragement from people like Jeff Ramsey. Let's get it done. But to be quite honest, we only got about halfway through book one, and things just slowed down. We just really weren't making progress. We didn't have a clear structure in mind, a clear way as to how we were going to pull this off. So the project got put on the shelf, and we decided it just would never happen. But that's okay. We gave it our best try.
Yeah.
And then you can fast forward again, Stephen, to the summer before this past summer.
Right, so
summer
2024.
Of 2024.
Okay.
And this wonderful gentleman, Jeff Ramsey, also invites me out for a beverage. So I meet him at Floyd and Blackie's for a cup of coffee. And Jeff says to me, Dixie, the 250th for America is coming up in the year 2026. And wouldn't it be a wonderful thing for our little town if we can celebrate our history in a meaningful way? Because this founding family of our town had a significant impact not only on our little town, but on the state of North Carolina and on the nation as a whole.
Sure, yeah.
And he said, wouldn't it be great if we could have something very tangible and significant, a way for us in our own small way in Cramerton to make that 250th celebration truly unique and special. And I said, what do you have in mind, Jeff? And he said, you need to get that project off the shelf. Let's get Warren back involved in it, other members of the family. Let's surround you with an editorial team of people here in town that you're very close to who are going to support you and encourage you in this, and let's get it done. And that was the little boost of just encouragement I needed. And so that very night, I started working on it again. That team, who was truly instrumental, I'll go ahead and mention them here. First of all, Jeff took on the role as the project lead. So he would take care of all of the meetings we would have, all of the business decisions, if you will, things like this today, booking events for us. I also had an editorial team there in town of Richard Atkinson, who happens to be our mayor pro tem of Cramerton,
Okay.
Jennifer Ramsey, who happens to be a town commissioner, and Doug Glenn, who is the president of our historical society. In addition, we had Mr. Warren Kramer, who you'll remember his name from back in 2022, as well as 2 additional family members got on board, Mr. Damon Vickers and Mr. Stuart Kramer III.
Okay, wow.
So with this team surrounding me, the project, we got a lot of energy behind the project. I spent a lot of very focused hours because I then had a timeline. Jeff had challenged me to get this trilogy ready in time for the lead-up year going into the
2026.
So that's the story behind how this trilogy came about.
All right, so I don't know much about writing. I'm an engineer by training, so, all we do is write data reports. I mean, it's just boring. But what I do know, I've studied enough about it to know that the time period you just described, to go from there to here, that is super quick. I mean, holy moly! Because I do a podcast, but I listen to podcasts. I have how would I put it? I have dabbled into what would it take to write my own book. I'm like, good Lord, there's no way. I wouldn't have the patience. I just wouldn't. So I realized, man, that's incredible. So Jeff, what would you add to that, or how would you comment? So it sounds like she described you as the lead. So how would you help us understand how we got here?
Well, as you just mentioned, men have a hard time putting words on paper.
Or saying them, period.
Warren is a story. He had history, graduated Duke University. His dad graduated Harvard, and they did history. 40 years ago, he said, you need to do something with your diploma. Won't you write about my father, Stuart W. Kramer Sr., because nobody knew his name. Remember the name. So when you read these 3 books, it's going to be an amazing story for you. So he originally just wanted to write a history of 100 to 150 pages. So I knew Dixie, how she works, and her personality would make him move forward a lot quicker than what he was. So the blend, the fiction and real history is phenomenal. I mean, all the reviews that we get, they talk about it. It's unbelievable. I love reading history now. It's true, the characters are, but she makes up all the dialogues and conversations in this book.
Which frankly makes it more interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah. That's what you'll love about the trilogy. So I just said, hey, we're just going to commission Dr. Dixie Abernathy to write this book. We'll have Warren be the editor and the historian of it, and it worked beautifully. I mean, like you said, a year's time and be able to produce 3 books. I mean, we've met with a lot of different people, and they're amazed that we did a trilogy on it. So
I mean, 1 book in that time period would be an accomplishment.
Yeah. I mean,
much less 3.
Yeah, the first book starts out in the Revolution War in 1780.
Okay.
So
all right. So not sure where to go next, but how I'm fortunate with my involvement in the community over the last 25 years that I know a lot about Stuart Kramer. In fact, being in Rotary, I've seen multiple programs about it. My wife and I are personal friends with the family that lives in Stuart Cramer's house now. You know, they're longtime friends and customers. I've actually been up there multiple times because we've helped them do some work up there, you know, and just the work that they've done up there. And Chris really knows a lot about all that. And I saw that he was on the board, I think.
Yeah,
he's the
Historical
I actually Society.
Made him president a couple of years ago.
Okay.
I told him that's usually for life, but he begged me to get off after 2 years. He had to do a lot of renovations.
Yeah, he did, and we helped him a little bit with that on the comfort side. So we've been very fortunate to be involved with that. It's just, but it's my point is, it's such an interesting story that a lot of Gaston County residents have no idea the impact of Mr. Cramer, that family. I mean, I do too, a little bit because of the air conditioning side that we talked about, but just things like khakis. You know, there's just so many other things that people don't realize how, advanced maybe the things that he was doing for the time, and just especially with the meals and all that. So, how you know, kind of share a little bit. You can obviously we want people to go buy the book, right? So we don't want to give the story away, but just talk a little bit, if you can, both of you, about why he was so impactful in this kind of secret that of the gentleman from Gaston County, and what's such a big impact he had. Is that a fair question?
That's a great question. I'll start with that, and you know, if it's okay with you, I'll answer that question within the context of just an 40,000-foot view summary of each book.
Okay. Because
I think that leads into why he was such an incredible inventor, founder, leader. There's so many different impressive categories you could put Stuart W. Cramer in, but he almost was led to be such by the people in his family who came before him. And we thought that was important. An important part of the story as well is those ancestors. And so you see the trilogy here. Book 1, Promise of a Nation, as Mr. Ramsey just said, it begins in the year 1780. So these are the 3 generations that came in this family tree before Stuart W. Cramer was ever born. But in many ways, it was their accomplishments, their patriotism, their selflessness that almost made him into the man that he was. Very briefly, in this first book, you see his great-great-grandfather, a Revolutionary War patriot. And you're right, I'm not going to give away any of the big twists and turns. I hope that some of your listeners or viewers will check out the books. But you see the Civil War featured in this. Mr. Cramer had members of his family who fought on both sides of the Civil War. So many of these chapters, you are able to see the perspectives from both the Union soldier as well as the Confederate soldier. All of the trilogy was based on family stories that have been archived or passed down verbally through generations. And what that means is you have incredible stories that actually happened. For example, of a Union soldier who's given the mission, a spy mission, to cross the Chickahominy River in Virginia, where the enemy is camped on the opposite side. And he is to carry out this mission on his own. It's a solo mission in the dark of night. He's to go to the enemy's camp with the goal to find out what kind of artillery they have, so that his own side can be more prepared. So you get to see that mission carried out through the eyes of that actual person who was part of Stuart Cramer's family. And so book 1 ends right at the end of the Civil War. It actually ends in the town of Thomasville, which we know it as a much larger city nowadays than it was during this time. But it was a member of Stuart Cramer's family who was actually the founder of Thomasville. You read all about that in book 1. And then book 2 picks up in the year 1865 and goes through 1913. So in this book, you see at the very beginning, the South is in ruins from the Civil War, and the title, Rise from Ruin, refers to that as well as other types of ruin, financial ruin, the ruin of goals or ambitions that you once had that are now very different. This story takes us into the actual life of Stuart W. Cramer. We get to see him in his childhood in Thomasville. We get to see him as he goes off to the U.S. Naval Academy, and then eventually as he finds his way into the world of textiles. And then in book 3, we get to see a lot more about his prolific work in textiles. You know, Stephen, he became truly a leader in that industry throughout the Southeast. He was so respected and admired that he ended up being the advisor for 5 different U.S. presidents on the topic of textiles and that industry and manufacturing. But also in book 3, you come to meet and learn more about the journeys of his 3 children. Their 3 journeys, I will say, are just as amazing as all the other family members. And you see the founding of our town, Cramerton, as it comes to be in this 3rd book. So back to Stuart W. Cramer, you started your question with that. I think it was just the family members who came before him who really instilled in him that ambition, that vision. But also I think he was just an intellectual mastermind, a genius in his own right. A lot of people don't know he holds the patent to over 60 inventions. Including air conditioning, which we're all very grateful for. But this was a man who was prolific in his imagination, in his vision. And I will tell you one story. This is spilling out one little exciting story from book 3, but I think this will tell you a lot about the man, Stuart W. Cramer. So in book 3, you see his youngest son come home from school, where he's attending a private school in Asheville. He's about 14 years old, and he's very ill. And as the days go on, his fever spikes, and the doctors basically inform his father, Stuart W. Cramer, that if that fever is not decreased in some significant way very quickly, the boy will lose his life. Stuart W. Cramer goes to one of his one of his mill buildings, and he calls in all of his engineers, and he draws up the very design himself for an 8-foot-long window box unit that he believes will be able to condition the air in his son's bedroom and make it cooler and thus bring his temperature down. He works all night with his colleagues. They produce this thing that's never been made before. He installs it on his son's bedroom window with the help of his friends, and his son's life is saved. I think that tells you a lot about this man, the founder of our town, Stuart W. Cramer.
Yeah, I think like so many people like him, it's just, there's a problem, let's go solve it, right? I think so many things that we read about or hear about, I mean, y'all wanted to accomplish something, y'all just went and did it. Right, it's similar to that. So, Jeff, what would you add to the whole aura, so to speak, of Stuart Cramer and Cramerton in general?
Well, you mentioned, I always say, America's been great because of the can-do attitude.
Yeah,
and we're trying to bring that back, as we all know.
Yes,
it's not like, well, I don't know if I can do that. No, we can do that. So, just to mark that. But yeah, the trilogy was. Yeah, I knew the first stories of Stuart W. Cramer, but I didn't know beyond the other generations. And it is amazing, his lineage, how patriotic these people were. Every one of them were in the wars. The Revolution War, Civil War, the Mexican War, that you'll find out something huge happened in the second book. World War I, World War II is very significant to Cramerton. Stuart Cramer Jr. best friend was George Patton.
Wow.
George Patton will be all in this book. 2 or 3 unbelievable stories of his friend that they met in Texas and served together in the Mexican War and then World War I. But, I'm excited because when I read it, I went, every high school student in the state of North Carolina should read this book. Yeah. The reason why it's North Carolina story, but also it's an American story. We're celebrating the 2026. You know, kids don't like reading history books, but they would love to read this trilogy. So we're working on that part of it through the legislators, and we'll see what happens there, because they have a 250 committee too.
Okay, that's cool.
And we're presenting to them next month in Raleigh. But also, Congressman Moore is going to recognize the Cramer family for their contribution in World War II for giving up the patent for 4 years and converting all the mills that needed to make the Cramerton Army khaki uniform. Right. So also it'll be commissioned in Library of Congress that day too. So we're blessed to be recognized for that. Also, we're on Amazon. We've been #1 all of July. Hot new release for Promise of the Nation, because people are starting to turn their attention to the 250th.
Right.
And then Rise of Ruins was out Labor Day, and reason why, after Civil War, guess what they started? The furniture industry. Thomas Chair, all Cramer, Thomas, and the Lambeth family. Yeah. So we recognize all the textile workers and the furniture workers for Labor Day. And then 3 will come out Veterans Day, because every one of them was veterans. So we picked those significantly. Of course, July the 4th for Promise of the Nation. So we've been very blessed with this book, and they all been 5-star ratings on reviews. It's been unbelievable. Now it's our job to get it out to people, and thank you for hosting us today to share that.
Well, you're welcome. Y'all 3 listeners will get a kick out of this podcast episode. I'm kidding. Gosh, I opened my fat mouth. I forgot I was getting ready to ask Rachel. That's what I get for trying to make a snarky comment, huh? So yeah. Where I was going is I'm looking forward to the 250, because I was 6 years old at the bicentennial. Oh, yeah. So it just, I remember it. What I remember most, it seems like I remember the quarters that came out, but I'm excited about this one because it's going to be so much more impactful to me personally. And so, so this, I appreciate how much this ties in to and then of course I'm just a homer for Gaston County like you guys are, so I love this stuff. So how does this tie in? Maybe, do you want to talk at all about the Cramerton Historical Society? How does this tie into that? And, or I'm going too far off track?
No, it's great.
Yeah.
Dixie, tell them a little bit.
I'll start off with that. That's a great question. As you mentioned in your introduction, Jeff and myself are very active in the Cramerton Historical Society. This is our 10th year anniversary for our historical society. It was founded at that centennial event in 2015, and we're just so proud of all we've accomplished. Like many little local museums throughout Gaston County, we offer special community events several times a year, from lectures to people like Art Shoemaker, who brought in his baseball collection and did a little talk. And we always try to do something around Christmas time to celebrate the history of the churches in Cramerton and so forth. But I will say one of the things we've been doing the last few years that we're extremely proud of is our 4th grade field trip program. So at our little historical society, we designed an original curriculum that aligns to the social studies curriculum of the state of North Carolina for 4th grade. And we invite schools from Gaston County to bring their 4th graders to our museum. We have all sorts of activities, crafts. We make it fun for them to learn the history of our town and the history of their county, Gaston County. And we're going into our 4th year of hosting these field trips. We each year we host anywhere between 500 and 800 students. So at this point, thousands of 4th graders have walked through our museum, and we just feel that's part of our mission. Our vision statement actually mentions connecting the youth as well as those a little more advanced in age, but we want all age groups involved in sharing and understanding the history of our town. So we're super proud of those field trips. And we actually start the field trips next week.
Okay.
Our new academic year is starting next week, and we'll be welcoming Sadler Elementary on October 9th.
Very good.
Yes.
So where is the museum for our listeners who don't know?
You want me to get? So basically, we work with the town of Cramerton to find space and not much money to it. So we started that in 2015, and then we moved to the Cramerton Community Center. It's right there where the old school is, the gym, swimming pool. But we're downstairs of the old locker rooms.
Okay.
Of the community center. But they renovated it. It's beautiful. And there's a co-founder is Richard Atkinson, myself, and Ted Reese, my great uncle's passed now. But one thing we wanted to do is beyond having a museum, we wanted to tell stories instead of just having artifacts sitting there. We was going to tell you about a whole story. So Richard's background is being engineer, architect. So he owned his own company for 40 years. So I said, Richard, you'll be chair of the museum because you can build everything for us. And he did, and he built these massive panels that tells different stories.
Right.
I'll tell you a little thing that I learned about a year ago. I didn't write, the famous word fish camp?
Yeah.
Guess where it came from? Cramerton. Luther Lineberger and a bunch of his friends, after the second shift, they would go camp out and go fishing. And then one of the guys says, hey, I can build one of them frying pans in the mill shop. So they started frying fish. Camp, fish. So fish camp. So,
am I correct? They would do it right on the bank?
They did.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, there's always one smart one that figures out how to make money. Well, Luther Lineberger started the fish camps in the 40s. But in the meantime, the Kramer Mills and the Kramers would hire them to feed 3,000 people.
Jeez.
Fish.
Wow.
So that's where that all started. And hopefully we'll get the catfish jam back.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I was fortunate enough to spend a lot of time with Don Lineberger.
Oh, yeah.
In my Rotary Club.
Yeah,
and he was a longtime customer, and him and my dad were friends. So I got to sit with him at Rotary for years, and I would just pepper him with questions about stuff like that.
Yeah,
man.
and they grew
man.
up on Front Street, right across the street from my grandparents. So, and that's where Kramer built the characters of people that grew up in the Mill Village. And that's one reason Stuart W. Kramer High School is named for him. If you go in our museum, he was educating African Americans with their own school and everything in 1918. That's unheard of.
Yeah, I remember reading about that, or Chris telling me or something.
And they're getting ready to renovate it right now, finally. Yeah. So, but our vision was to celebrate everything 100 years. So Chris and Emily let us use Maymont. It was built in 1917. Catherine Kramer was married there in 1917, and we have the wedding dress of a 1917, but it hadn't been donated to us yet, but we're going to get it. So we celebrate that, and then when we do history, we look for things. Well, Mr. Kramer loved golf. In 1922, he built his first golf course parallel to Goat Island. It was a sand course, like Pinehurst used to be. So beyond that, we've had 4 golf courses. So we do a legacy of golf tournament. It's a big fundraiser for us. It's first class. So
when is that typically done?
In May. And shout out to Doug Glenn. His health is not good right now, but he's been over that, and he's done a fantastic job for us. So as you can see, we like reaching out. So we use this as a platform, our museum, but we're really telling the stories outside the museum.
Right.
And Stephen, if I could just add, in the front of each of the 3 books, there's a note to the reader, and it explains that a portion of the proceeds from each sale of these books goes directly to our historical society and museum. And the last thing I would share regarding the historical society is at the back of each of these 3 books is a historical and anecdotal inventory. So this lets the reader know for each of the stories and so forth that's shared here, anecdotally what family members shared that story or how it was shared with them, or historically where the source for that information came from. And of course, our own Cramerton Museum was the source for much of the information that was shared in these books.
Very good. So what's plans for the future for the Historical Society? Anything specific, or it's a secret and you'd have to kill me if you shared it?
You want me to take that?
Go ahead, you can take it.
Well, basically, we're out of room.
Yeah,
But it costs a lot of money to find buildings.
Sure it does.
Take them over. So that is a vision for us, but we wanted to kind of have a little bit of everything because, as I mentioned, Catherine Kramer, she was the founder of the Culinary Institution of America. It's the largest in the world right now. She started in 1946 at Yale University for the veterans coming back from World War II. So when we moved to a museum, we wanted a kitchen for culinary arts to pass that down to. So, yeah, I mean, 5 or 10 years, if you said, that's what we're shooting for.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
So over the next year, though, our future plans is the Historical Society is sponsoring the building of a new legacy arch there in our town near our historic ball fields, which, again, were built by Stuart W. Kramer as part of his model mill village. And that legacy arch will have the names of families from the past and families who have just moved to Cramerton that are part of our future, because that's the vision of our town. Pride in our past, faith in our future. So that's the newest project for the Cramerton Historical Society.
Oh, very good. So that's a lot. So I got a few things going on, huh?
A little small town.
In between working and family and everything else. So, is there anything specifically with the Historical Society or the trilogy, anything I haven't asked that I should have asked, or anything you might want to make sure we share that I haven't asked, because in my professional interviewing, it's not great.
I think your interviewing is fantastic, so
Well, I
don't be
appreciate
too hard
that.
on yourself. I think the only thing I would add about the trilogy is for people interested in what genre this trilogy is, because obviously by now they would have surmised it's historical, but there's a lot of historical types of genres.
Okay.
There's more historical textbook or historical account or historical biography. This is definitely historical fiction. So it's grounded on historical events, and it follows the stories of the family with fictional, like Jeff said, like the dialogue and so forth had to be created fictionally to connect the characters to one another. Part of that note to the reader at the beginning of each book, Stephen, makes it clear to the reader that we did the best we could with the history provided to us,
right?
But that it is historical fiction. So there might be someone who knew a member of the family who would say, "Oh, I don't remember that he thought that way about that, or that she said that about that."
Yeah.
But that's the way the family remembers it.
Sure.
So this stories, this follows the journey of the family, told through the perspective of the family themselves.
Yeah. So many things that we get involved with. It's making decisions with the best decision we can make with the information we have at the time is similar, right?
But it is an incredible journey. It really is.
And when she was talking about that, book one was in historical fiction category at Amazon.
Yes.
And then what's this one? Is it?
Well, that's just an interesting aside about Amazon. But
Yeah.
when your books are sold on Amazon, Amazon decides what categories they're in. They put this one in historical fiction,
Like it should be.
but they put this one in religious fiction anthologies. And when we wrote them to please ask them to put it in the same category as this one, since they are a set.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just a funny
That's
little
interesting.
aside. That
and the
doesn't
good
affect
news,
sales. or
Yeah, the
anything.
good news is this became number 1 too in that new category.
Right.
So we didn't fuss too much about it.
Did I hear you say that was it the first one that starts? Did I hear you say in New Bern?
Yeah.
Okay, the reason I'm saying that, my wife and I were just there. Gosh,
Beautiful.
a
Did
month
you
and
go
a half.
by the Tryon Palace?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's beautiful. So I went there. I was
We had never, and my wife, we had never been.
And
Lived here our whole life and never been to New Bern.
and one of the Kramers live there now. and she didn't know that her great-great-great-grandfather was from there. It was Moses Lambeth where it originally started, and then he fought in Charlestown.
Yeah. So Moses is our American patriot who the book opens up with his story, and he is a man from New Bern.
All right, yeah. So my wife and I spent a few hours there, and we had no idea about this story. But we had a friend. We were traveling from Raleigh on our way to Morehead City, actually, and we stopped there for all afternoon. And that whole area and place is just interesting, and all the connection, all the stories, and so again, it's just another example of North Carolina that you just don't, unless somebody tells you, you read about it, you go looking for it, you're not going to find like this right here, right?
I'll give you a couple ha-ha moments for me traveling to New Bern. So I went around the historical part. So I met with a librarian historian. I said, my first question, I said, do you know who Moses Lambeth is? He said, oh, yeah. So I fell over, and then he pulls out this thick book. He said, yeah, they've been here since the 1600s. I said, wow. The other ha-ha moment, we are sister cities pretty much with Thomasville because this is a lot of Thomasville in these two books. So the mayor takes us to the grave sites. All the people she wrote about are in that gravesite. It blew our minds.
Yeah, it really is a surreal feeling when you're
the Lambeth, the Thomas, and Cramers.
At the gravesite
of
an individual who you have just written a book about. It touched me very greatly. It really did.
And for some of our listeners, for some reason, if you don't know, if you just head up I-85 north, you're going to basically go through Thomasville. Yeah.
Right. So as Jeff said, you'll read a lot about Thomasville in book 1 as well as book 2.
Yeah, it takes place.
But speaking of book 1, Stephen, we would be honored to present to you. We brought you an autographed copy of book 1, and we hope you will enjoy.
I'm sure I absolutely will, and I can assure you I will be checking out the other two as well. Like I mentioned before we started recording, I'm a big reader. I love fiction, historical fiction, history, just anything related. And, of course, especially if it's somewhere I have visited and know enough about to be dangerous. So I'm looking forward to reading that. So thank you very much.
And Dixie did a fantastic job about the Civil War, and the friction after the Civil War is unbelievable, and it's a true story. The other thing that we found out when we was at the gravesite, they're the only one in the United States of America has a Union and a Confederate buried beside each other.
It seems like I remember hearing that somewhere along the way.
They showed that too. I went, wow, that's unbelievable.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and that story is a lot in this book.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, listen, we're getting close to going to land this plane, so to speak. We do like to ask a couple of questions since it is a podcast about Gaston County, and we're going to make you say something besides Cramerton in these books, okay? No. So knowing this is, you guys are both been here a long time, right? And so you're maybe homers for Gaston County like I am. But, Jeff, I'll start with you. Besides Cramerton, the Cramer Historical Society, and this terrific trilogy and work you all have done, why would you say Gaston County is such a great place?
I think in the last 10 years, 15 years, amazing the transition Gaston County has done. Growing up here, you had a textile mill on one corner and a church on the next. So that was our mill village, and I still have the mill village accent. That's the only thing I didn't like, but it is what it is. Because I'm going to Chicago next week for my sales meeting. They love when I
know where you're from, huh? Yeah.
But in these towns, every one of them's reinvented themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. And who would have thought that Gaston County people love coming here and live here now?
Yeah.
Because you remember John Boy and Billy did a lot of work on us on Lynn Heads. So it is amazing. The transition is still family oriented. I believe our education's good. Our CTE is really good for kids now.
Yeah, I agree with that, yes.
So I've run into people from New York and Boston, and I said, why did you move here? He said, for schools, because they can't afford schools in Mecklenburg County, so they come here. So that made me feel a lot better. But Yeah, I think, and the leaderships of, I tell you the other thing, the nonprofit organizations are fabulous here, and they collaborate with each other.
Right.
They don't compete with each other. They try to make Gaston County great again.
All right. So he gave me like 10 things there, Dixie.
That was awesome. That was
She
awesome.
could cover anything.
So how would you answer that? How would you
I guess
answer
I'll
that
hone
question?
down a little more personally because you're right. He highlighted so many great things that I agree with. But I would say that just as a product of Gaston County, I've always felt so much pride in that. Two quick little anecdotal points to hammer that home. So when I was getting ready to graduate from Wake Forest University with my degree in education and my teaching license, Wake Forest hosted a job fair, and all of the school systems from across the state were there. And I'll never forget, I walked around until I could find the Gaston County table, and I spoke to the representatives there, and they said, well, I guess you've visited a lot of other tables today. And I said, no, I came here today to just visit one. I have no desire to go anywhere else but back home to Gaston County. And as I've already told you, I spent my whole career here. But fast forward from that moment, 6 years into the future, I was 27 years old, and I was very honored to be recognized as the North Carolina Teacher of the Year.
Oh, wow.
And I'll never forget on the day that I won that, Bonnie Reedy, who worked
Everybody
for
knows
Gaston
Bonnie
County,
Reedy.
she called me and she said, I can't believe this, Dixie. I said, I can't either. And she said, do you realize you're the first teacher from Gaston County to ever win this? And when she said that to me, it just meant so much to me in that moment. It meant more to me to be Gaston County's first than just what that award meant to me individually. Just because I feel a lot of pride in having grown up here and spent my whole life here. And just going back to the trilogy, you know, the history of the little town of Cramerton obviously is connected to the history of all the towns and cities here in Gaston County. It's our shared history, the history of textiles, and just this beautiful place that we call home.
Well, I appreciate that because, you know, I'm a product of Gaston County schools like you. My kids, all three of my kids are products of Gaston County schools. But I think it's probably more of a southern type phrase, but you guys are examples of Gaston County, products of Gaston County schools that done good. Right? And it's nice to hear those examples and people, because it is important in my view, again, being a homer for Gaston County, people come back. If they go off to get an education somewhere, come back to Gaston County. I've traveled a lot. I went off to Raleigh for a few years. Gaston County is a pretty good place. And I feel like we're fortunate, and it's the people, the nonprofits, the work you guys are doing. Frankly, the geographic location where we're at. I mean, it's just a really unique and great place. So, one more question for our listeners, because maybe there's somebody young out there, that 20-year-old who's wondering, okay, how do I want to do what she's done, you know? So, how would you answer that question? Is knowing what you know now, Dixie, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Don't ever tell yourself you can't do it, but understand it takes a lot of work. So work hard every day. Don't lament that. Look at that as an honor, as an opportunity that you get to work, that you have the ability to have a job or to have a project. Maybe a friend like Jeff has challenged you to do something. Don't look at that as a negative. Look at it as a positive. It's an opportunity. So get to work on it and work hard.
Oh, that's a great, in your example too, I think it's terrific where, you know, if you remember, I think I'm paraphrasing, but you basically said, we gave it a good try, but this project's not going to happen. Now, here we are, right? So that's terrific, you know. So how would you answer that question,
20 years
Jeff?
old, I was thinking what I was doing 20 years old. I was working part-time at Duke Power and going to Central Piedmont Community College. I come from a single-family home and mother of 3 boys, so we paid our way. And it had to be a can-do attitude. I agree with you because it was tough, but to get where you want to go, you have to work hard. The good news about being in high school now, there's so many opportunities for these kids to choose college or career. And what I'm seeing now, they're going to community college and then they go to career or they go to college. But they're making Gaston College rank the biggest enrollment ever.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
Reason why they're choosing not to go in much debt, and they're choosing a career with GSM or transfer to a university. So a 20-year-old today has the opportunity to, but like Dixie said, it takes you individually to have your goals and your dream to make it happen. And you can. You just have to put the work in.
Yeah. Okay. So I appreciate that greatly. Great answer. So where can our listeners go? You mentioned Amazon. So 2 of them are already available. Is that correct? And then Veterans Day. So next month, I guess, the third one will be available because, we're recording this on October 1st, right?
Yes. So November 11th, this one will be officially published worldwide.
All right. Well, that's fantastic. Anything else you want to share about Cramerton Historical Society, Cramerton? Any last words before we close this episode out?
Just want to thank you for your time. Yep. You did a great job, and
thank you
for the invitation.
Well, I appreciate that. Jeff, anything to finish us off?
Just again, thank you for letting us share this with you. And like we all agree, Gaston County is a great place to grow up and raise a family.
Well, again, I appreciate what you guys are doing and what you have done and continue to do. So, to make Gaston County a better place. And normally I'll finish off with like a quote of the week or something, or I'll share a book recommendation where obviously that's taken care of this week, right? Yeah, so I didn't have to come up with anything this week. So, again, I appreciate that. So, to our listeners out there, thank you for taking the time to listen to today's episode. Please continue to spread the word if you can about the podcast. And don't hesitate to contact us here at an email address, which is podcast@gastonsgreat.com. We are always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests. You can find the podcast and subscribe at the website, gastonsgreat.com, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And please follow us on all our social media platforms. Thanks again to Dixie and Jeff for being our guests today. Gaston's Great is produced and brought to you by Rachel Cowart from GSM Services. I'm your host, Stephen Long. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and please keep coming back to hear more reasons why Gaston's great.